Hey friend, welcome back to the Alex Makes VR podcast. In today's episode, super quick one, I want to tell you about the myth of motivation. Now, the reason this is going to be a super quick episode is because this can literally be summarized by a quote that a fitness coach that I follow put out on Instagram. For those of you who would be interested in going checking out the original quote, the guy is Jordan Syatt, Syatt. This quote that he put out essentially just said, action leads to results, leads to motivation, not the other way around. And that really struck a chord with me because for so long, I'd always bought into this idea that some days you would you would wake up and you would be motivated and other days you wouldn't. Some days you'd feel productive and hyper-focused and super creative, and some days you wouldn't, and that's okay. You just roll with the punches. On days you're motivated, you do more. On days you're not, you don't, And when I read this quote, I was like, holy shit, that is something that I've never even thought about. That actually, the secret to motivation is consistency. The secret is that you're not always going to be motivated. The secret to success for anything, regardless of what you're doing in life, is showing up every single day, even when you don't feel like it. Because at the very least, on those days that you show up and you didn't feel like it, but you did it anyway, at the very least, you will be proud of yourself for showing up. And that, in turn, will make you more motivated. Action leads to results, leads to motivation. Action, you show up every day, even when you don't feel like it. Results, even on the days that you don't feel like it, you will feel better for doing it. And on the days you did feel like doing it, and you did kind of get in your stride with creative or whatever else is that you've kind of shown up to do that day, you'll start to get results. You'll start to either finish a project, or you'll start to get feedback from other people. You'll start to get emails back from people that you've been sending things out to. You'll start to get that feedback, that results. You're starting to see the results of your actions. Motivation, because you're seeing the results of your actions you've been taking, now you're motivated to do more. So you'll show up more. You'll be more excited to show up. You'll be more willing to show up, to do more actions, which will lead to more results, which will lead to more motivation. And it becomes this momentum, this cycle. So I challenge you today or tomorrow, depending on when you're listening to this, think about the thing that you know you should do. Think about that goal. Is it to get a new client? Is it to finish a new project or even start a new project? Is it to, whatever it might be, find a collaborator, get to the gym, whatever it might be. Think of that one thing that you know is something that you've wanted to do for ages, but you've been putting it off because either you've not found the time or you just didn't quite feel like you need to be in the right headspace to do it. That thing, I challenge you today, for half an hour or 10 minutes, whatever it is, whatever time you have free, just make some progress. Show up every day. Show up today. What is the thing you can do today to show up, to take one step closer towards the goal that you have for yourself? There's this really famous, it's a book. I think it's called The War of Art. And in that, I'm fairly certain this is where it comes from. They talk about this idea of, there was a study that it was like writers, if they sat down to write for 3 minutes, they would find that 80% of people would carry on writing. So if you say to yourself, or maybe I'm mixing up my quotes here or evidence, maybe it wasn't from that book, but I know there's something in that book about showing up, because there's a really famous takeaway from that book is that amateurs show up when they feel like it, professionals show up when they don't. So this idea that if you want to be a professional creative, then you have to treat it like a job. So you don't get to decide when to show up for your job, do you? You have to show up. You show up for your clients. You show up for your employer. You have to show up. You work a certain amount of hours a day because that is what you do when you are being paid to do something. And if you want to be a professional creative, that's how you need to treat yourself. You need to treat it like a job. You don't get a choice to show up when you feel like it. You have to show up every day regardless. So that's maybe that's the war of ours. Maybe I'm thinking of something else with this. But this is actually like a study that, people who sat down to write for 3 minutes, generally speaking, 80% of them would carry on for at least another 15 minutes. And that's because the hardest bit to do is just do the action. But if you just accept that some days you're going to feel like doing that action and some days you're not, and either way you're going to do it anyway, kind of takes the sting out of it. I think one of the biggest annoying things with it is like deciding whether or not to do it in the first place. Like, oh, am I in the mood to write a bit more of that? Or maybe I should do something else. Like, no, just like have it in the calendar, stick to it, show up, even if it's just for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, show up, do it, make progress today, my friend. Send me a message or tag me on Instagram or something to prove that you've done this, because I'll be watching. I'll be looking out. Because in a year's time, when you're still thinking about, oh, I just wish that I had made that 360 film. I just wish that I had taken the plunge to start getting new clients so that I could leave my job that I hate. In a year's time, when you're thinking all that stuff, still, you'll have no one else but yourself to blame, because future you is just present you doing something for 365 days. And it could be 10 minutes or it could be 5 hours. Maybe 10 minutes leads to 5 hours. But ultimately, you have to make the small steps. You have to build consistency into your routine. And don't get me wrong, I sound like I'm sitting on my high horse over here. This is something I struggle with daily. This is something I've literally only just managed to grasp in the last 8 months. Like, I've spent years doing the absolute opposite to this, but it's only really since implementing this that I've really started to see results in lots of different areas of my life. And my mental health is it's just so much better. I just removed the friction. I'm showing up and I'm writing today. I'm showing up. I'm recording those podcasts, even if they're shit, even if I don't feel like I'm doing my best work. I'm going to do it because something is better than nothing. And action leads to results, which leads to motivation. So I'm going to leave this there. Tag me, reach out to me on Instagram and Twitter. AlexMakesVR is my handle. Please take a second to follow and subscribe on the podcast app that you're listening on. That would mean the world to me. If you're on Apple Podcast, if you give me a rating, that would be incredible. Thank you so much in advance for doing that. Every single episode that I send out, I kind of also send out an accompanying newsletter to give you some of the insider tips and tricks on what I'm talking about in the episodes. So sign up to the newsletter, alexmakesvr.com. I hope this has got you jazzed. I hope this has got you motivated. Go make action, make progress, my friend, so that we can all be joyous in 365 days and think, you know what, even if I'm still not where I want to be, at least I've made progress and I'm 365 days better off than what I was before, and I'm not in the same place. So go forth, my friend, and conquer. Have a great day, and I will speak to you very soon.